Hey, Jeff.
Emily, how's it going?
Good, good. Thanks for joining me today. For those that are just popping in to check out this video, I'm Emily Balchetis. I'm an associate professor in the social psychology department at NYU.
I'm Jeff Berg. I'm a PhD student at NYU working with David Modio.
Cool. So we wanted to talk a little bit about letters of recommendation. Part of the application process at NYU, and like most schools, asks applicants to submit about 3 letters of recommendation. But it can be really challenging to figure out, well, who should those come from? How can I find the people that are going to best support my application? And I'm really excited to talk with Jeff today because he's had some great insights, having recently-ish gone through this experience. So Jeff, how did you approach finding people to write your letters?
Well, I thought about what the sort of most important research and professional experiences I had were, and then also thought about which former mentors of mine knew me the best and can speak most to either me as a person or me as a researcher. And then I asked the people who I thought could speak to the skills I had as a researcher, my accomplishments as a researcher, and also speak to me as a person, that I'm motivated or that I'm enthusiastic, that could speak to my character. Ideally, you have letter writers who can speak to both, but it's okay to have ones who could focus more on one than the other.
And were they all faculty members at the university that you had gone to for undergrad?
No, I asked two faculty from my undergrad university to write letters for me, one in political science and one in cognitive science. And then I asked my boss at the lab I worked in at WashU. One professor I worked with my first couple years in undergrad, one professor was my thesis advisor. And so they kind of spanned the entire timeline of my research trajectory.
I know sometimes students also will have been out of their applicants will have been out of their undergrad, and they feel that maybe it's been several years since they've had connections with those faculty members, and maybe they're in an internship now, or like you said, that they're in a job, and so sometimes they think that maybe they should pull somebody who's more recent to write a letter of recommendation. And it sounds like that you did that for one of your letters. I would just caution some people about thinking about what is that job and who is your boss in that current position. And for you, Jeff, it sounds like that was somebody who still was really knowledgeable about your research skills
Mm-hmm.
and about other qualities about you that would be relevant for graduate study. And is that the case?
Yeah, I was fortunate to still be working in a research capacity after I graduated. I know that's not the case for everyone. And so just think about the degree to which they can talk about you as a researcher and as a person. And it's okay to go back to people you worked with 4 or 5+ years ago to ask for letters, as long as they can speak about you.
Yeah, I've had students that I have mentored have asked that, and it's been several years now. Those students who have been out for several years and who know it will be several years before they ask me again do stay in touch with me. So every
Mm-hmm.
maybe 6 months or every year or so, they do reconnect just to keep that connection alive. Let me know what they are up to, sort of progress reports, just so we continue to keep our relationship, and that's really helpful. Now, maybe that doesn't apply to you, and it still has been a few years since you've made contact with somebody that you'd want to ask. And in that case, I also advise those students to, when they approach me, maybe it's been a few years since they took my class, is to highlight some of the things that I could personally speak to in their letter, like a remembrance or a reminder about a class project that they did, about a paper that they wrote in my class, and maybe about how those experiences that I directly observed with them spurred on some other research or professional pursuit, so that I could connect my experiences with them to what they're doing now, and use that as a basis for speaking to what they want to do in the future. So I might advise that also when you're reaching out to people for letters of recommendation, is to help jog their memory, help remind them about some of the concrete aspects of your shared experience that they could comment on. Another thing that people ask about letters of recommendation is, does it need to come from a famous person? Did you have thoughts about that? Did you wonder about that, Jeff?
Yeah, I did wonder about that. My I was actually a little nervous when applying to grad school because I went to a small liberal arts college, and then I worked with someone completely outside of social psychology. Um, in my job after grad school. None of my I didn't even take a social psychology class in undergrad. So I don't think any of my letter writers were known by any of the faculty at NYU when I applied. That's completely okay. What matters is that you had the successful research experience with your letter writers and that they can speak well about you as a person, as a researcher. And oftentimes when you go work with like less name brand researchers, you can develop more personal relationships with them and work more closely with them, get more involved in the research process than if you worked in a really big lab with a famous PI who's never there. So use that to your advantage. It's about the research experience. It's not necessarily about the person.
I totally agree with what Jeff is saying. I think that's great advice. And that is what we're looking for when we're reading these letters of recommendation, is the depth of the skills and experiences that that letter writer can speak to about you. Yeah, and the last thing that I'll add to this conversation is as you're thinking about who those letter writers should be, just realize that 99.9% of letters are positive. They are letters of recommendation. People don't spend the time and they're not nearly so underhanded as to take this opportunity to write negative things about the people that they're choosing to support or write a letter for. So in that sense, all the letters that we're reading are really positive. And like Jeff is saying, what we're looking for is not just who can say positive things about you, like you got an A in their class, or that you have a strong personality and a real passion for the science, but somebody who knows you on a personal level with regard to the skills that you would need or that we're hoping to help you develop in graduate school. So it's not just enough to have somebody who thinks well of you. Every letter writer hopefully thinks well of you, and that's why they accept the opportunity. Think about those people that you have a real close relationship with. That's going to get you the letter that stands out, and that will give us a deeper perspective or understanding of who you are. Any final thoughts, Jeff?
No, I think that's a good way to wrap it up.
That's great. Thanks so much for joining, Jeff, and good luck. Hopefully this was helpful to you who are watching. Thanks.
Good luck.
Bye.